The waiting list has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Waiting list has got to go.
Today is our annual Disability Rights Day, and you just witnessed the actual rally on the Capitol steps, but it's a whole day of activities. We really want to focus on people going inside the Capitol, meeting with their legislators, advocating for supports and services that people need to live in their own homes and be productive members of their community.
Most of us are here advocating for funding for home and community-based waivers. Others are advocating for increased funding for early steps, and then also for funding for Families Helping Families centers.
What are the major things that you're on your agenda for this legislative session?
There are three things, actually. One is the funding for waiver services for people to get off of the waiting list. And waiver services are, like I said, services that people need to stay in their own homes and in the community rather than having to be in an institution. And there is a waiting list of 13,000 people. The person on the top of the list has been waiting over 10 years. And that is just, as Representative Thiry said, that is just not acceptable. People really struggle every day having to endure that wait. And so there was funding for 1,200 people to come off of the waiting list last year, and mid-year budget cuts, most of that funding was cut, and so we are hoping to get that funding restored so that people can get off of the waiting list. We're also trying to get funding restored for our Families Helping Families resource centers. Again, last year the legislature appropriated just $170,000 for the statewide network of Families Helping Families centers, and that money was cut for this upcoming year's budget. So advocates are asking the legislature to restore that $170,000. And the resource centers are so beneficial to individuals with developmental disabilities and their families, especially those who are waiting, because they provide information and referral, education and training, peer-to-peer support. And from someone who has been there, they help them navigate the system and try and identify other resources in the community. And then finally, Early Steps, which is the state's early intervention program for infants and toddlers. And we are seeking funding to expand the eligibility criteria for Early Steps to what it was back in 2012. And I think it's $2.7 million would expand that eligibility criteria so you can provide services to infants and toddlers early and prevent further delay and the need for additional services later on.
How big of an issue is this?
It's a tremendous issue. I mean, if you don't have waiver services, you're stuck. You're stuck in life. You can't move forward. You can think about even a student that may be having their needs met when they're in school. When school ends, it's like you fall off of a cliff. And if you don't have waiver services, then you're either living your life on a couch or you're looking at an institution. And that's not the future that any of us want for our children.
For Early Steps, right when they changed the eligibility criteria, 900 infants and toddlers became ineligible. And so, that's a revolving number. And so I guess, every day as children apply and they're determined not eligible, that's another baby that's not getting the help that they need. So that's one aspect. The Families Helping Families centers, when they are so they have such a small amount of funding to begin with. You know, they struggle just to keep their doors open all the time. And so whenever they get a funding cut, they have to reduce hours of their staff. They have a decreased ability to do outreach into rural communities. And so, you know, all that impacts the number of people they can serve. As far as numbers, I don't know the number of people that it will impact directly, but it does definitely impact the number of people they can serve. And then for the waiver services, the 13,000 people who are waiting are all impacted. We are realistic and know that we're not going to get funding for all 13,000 people, and that's why we don't even ask for that, because we know that's unrealistic. But even in this difficult budget year, as you heard everybody say, they're asking people to make them a priority in the budget. I mean, they're going to include some things in the budget. Some things are going to get funded. And so what everyone was chanting, make me a priority, we're hoping to at least get those 772 waiver slots funded plus an additional 500. So that would be of immense help to 1,272 people. So, that's what we are hoping for. And then besides helping those people directly, it also gives hope to the 13,000 who are waiting. They will feel like their elected officials have not forgotten them.
I'm glad to see everybody here. My name is Sam Beach, and I am the chairperson for the Louisiana Developmental Disabilities Council, and I want to welcome y'all to the 2015 Disability Rights Day rally at the Louisiana State Capitol. Yes, it's a wonderful time to get together with people that we've known for a long time and to also meet new friends. It is so reassuring to us as family members and as self-advocates to see so many people on our side and that we are not alone. We are a community of advocates who share a vision of people with developmental disabilities being fully included in all aspects of life, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, and in our communities. This year is also special because our country celebrates the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. This law expanded opportunities for Americans with disabilities by reducing barriers, changing perceptions, and increasing full participation in community life. Please take this opportunity to celebrate that much has been accomplished in Louisiana and in our nation, but also recognize that much work remains for all people with disabilities to be fully included in their communities and to make a commitment to continue on this advocacy journey. Today we have a very important job: to ask our legislators to prioritize people with developmental disabilities and their families, right? Yeah! So how can we do this? We need to go and talk to our legislators, ask them to provide additional funding for early steps. Currently, our infants and toddlers with one delay in developmental area are not eligible for services. Early steps can reduce the need for special education and for other support services later in life, therefore reducing costs to Louisianians. That's critical. Funding early steps should be a no-brainer, right? Right. Second, we're asking our legislators to restore the funding to our Families Helping Families. All our Families Helping Families centers are the only one-stop shops in Louisiana representing all disabilities and related issues. And finally, last year you all, along with many others across the state, successfully advocated for funding waiver slots. Funding for 1,200 waiver slots. Before these could be filled, 772 of these slots were frozen due to budget cuts. This means they are not available to families who really need them. We're asking legislators to provide funding to unfreeze these slots and to fund an additional 500 slots. Almost 13,000 people are on the waiting list, and this wait needs to be over. A waiting list is not a service. It is time to end the wait. End the wait. End the wait. End the wait. Louder.
In the way, in the way, in the way, in the way.
Thank you. That's right. As we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the ADA, let's take the words of Justin Dart, the man known for its passage. Our lives, our children's lives, and self-advocates' lives, and thousands of others across our nation are hanging in the balance of equality and inequality of civil rights. We must empower each other and go in there and lead the fight for funding for people with disabilities. We are not an option, we are a priority, and we need to let them know. So we need to the waiting list has got to go. So now we want to chant, hey, hey, ho, ho, the waiting list has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, the waiting list has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho, the waiting list has got to go.
Hey, ho, ho, the waiting list has got to go.
Thank y'all.
Good afternoon. I'm Sandy Winchell, the Executive Director of the Developmental Disabilities Council. I want to also say welcome and let you know how much we appreciate you coming out today. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Representative Ladrika Theory serves District 40, which covers St. Landry Parish. She serves on the House Appropriations Committee, Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget, and the Insurance and Judiciary Committees. Representative Theory has long been an advocate for people with developmental disabilities, supporting funding for waivers and other services. This year, she is committed to authoring an amendment to provide additional funding for waiver slots and early steps. But today, Representative Theory comes to us also as a parent of a 6-year-old daughter with autism. Please give a big welcome to Representative Ladrika Theory.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to first say to you all, isn't today a beautiful day? I want to first say to you, thank you so much, some of you that have traveled very long ways, for coming out and showing your support for people with disabilities. I know that some people would have wanted to join us and they're unable to come because they have individuals in their family that they have to support. So we certainly appreciate you coming out and still being a voice for them, even though for those that aren't here. It is wonderful to see so many of you who have come to our Capitol today for Disability Rights Day in Louisiana. As Sandy said, I want to not only speak to you as a legislator, but as a mom. My daughter, who is now 7 years old, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 years old. We tried early steps at the age of 2 years old, not knowing that her diagnosis would have been autism, but we knew that she certainly had a disability. For our family, it was a complete shock. Financially, it was a complete shock. It incurred 3 jobs for just myself to be able to support the additional services that my daughter needed. Fortunately, God has provided for us and allowed my family to really serve as a true support system. But I'm also mindful for many of you here that just for you to come here today, the accommodations that you have to make for your loved ones is truly not an easy task. So I understand as a legislator and as a mom the importance of freeing the slots on the now waivers. For 26 years, LaCan advocates, having been coming to the Capitol to advocate for services that support people with developmental disabilities and their families to live in their own homes and be fully included in their communities. As a result of your advocacy and the relationships you've developed with lawmakers, thousands of people with developmental disabilities receive those support and are contributing members of our society. Unfortunately, your work is not done. 13,000 people with developmental disabilities remain on a waiting list for home and community-based waiver services. This is not acceptable. Can I hear you say this is not acceptable? The people at the top of the list have been waiting over 10 years. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. Families struggle every day to meet the needs of their family members with a disability at home, and without any support services, they sometimes reach the end of their rope, physically, emotionally, or financially, and they also seek out-of-home placement. This is not acceptable.
This is not acceptable.
We as a state must do better. We must assist families before they reach that crisis point. We must support families so they can stay together, stay employed, and stay healthy. Our state has many needs, and our state legislators have difficult decisions to make, but one decision should not be difficult. When looking at all the needs in this state, people with developmental disabilities and their families must be a priority. We are a priority. Eliminating the waiting list must be a priority. People, can I hear you say, we are a priority?
We are a priority.
Funding families, helping families, and early steps must be a priority. People, can I hear you say, we are a priority?
We are a priority.
All of you gathered here today have your own personal story. In some way, you have been impacted by disability. Legislators need to hear your story. They want to hear your story. They can't make you a priority if they don't know you, if they don't know your story and what you need. It's your responsibility to educate them so they will understand the importance of supports and services for people with disabilities. Share your story with your legislators today and ask them to make you a priority. Tell them what they can do to help. That is very important, but talking to them today is not enough. I encourage you to meet with your legislators in their district offices several times a year, so you can develop a relationship with them. So when you walk in those committee rooms and you have your shirts, they will know who you are. Get to know them and let them get to know your family. As a parent, I fully understand how difficult and hopeless it may seem to be on a years-long waiting list. But I don't want you to lose the faith, and I don't want you to quit. I want them to understand that every time you walk in our committee rooms, it's time. It is time, and people are tired of waiting on the waiting list. I want you to continue to support each other. I want you to continue to draw strength from each other and keep each other going and keep each other strong, because it is definitely a difficult task for many of you. You have families helping families, the DD Council, many legislators, and others who will continue to stand alongside you and advocate to end the wait. We will, again, if nothing else, we will never be silent. Stand up, be brave, let them hear your voices. Together, we will end the wait, and let me hear you once again, end the wait.
In the way! In the way! In the way! In the way!
In the way.
In the way! 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 In the way!
And I want to say to you all, thank you so much again for coming out and showing your support, and may God continue to bless you and your families. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Theory. Our next speaker represents District 16, which is in East Baton Rouge Parish. Senator Dan Claytor serves on the Senate Finance, Education, Health and Welfare, and Judiciary Committees. He also serves on the Joint Legislative Committee on the Budget. Senator Clater has been a huge advocate for people with developmental disabilities to receive the support they need to live in their own homes. He also co-sponsored the legislation last year to provide a pathway to a diploma for students with disabilities. Please join me in welcoming our good friend, Senator Dan Clater.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't have a family member that works with a developmental disability, and so I'm going to start with what Ladrika said about advocacy. I came to the Capitol in 2009, and I really didn't know anything about the people struggle on a day-to-day basis with those that have developmental disabilities in their family. But through education and small packages like Cooper and his family, Ashley, his parents, and the Moros, those that came before him, I became more and more educated about your issues. And so it is incredibly important, and that I wasn't your advocate in 2009, but over time I became your advocate, and I think that I'm one of your better advocates and do a pretty good job at it. So the congratulations goes to you, and different things work for different people. This is great that you're here and your presence is known, but for me, what works is spending time with Cooper, spending time with his family, spending time with others, learning about issues that are important to you. And the one that has come to me that has caused me a lot of frustration is that in the educational system, frequently, if not always, it seems as though we're treated as second-class citizens. And that's just not right. So I didn't come here with a chant, but I got one for us, which is, we are not second-class citizens. We deserve a place at the table. And that's what I'm doing with the legislation that we bring here. I'm not going to bring anybody to tears with any great speech other than to say that I'm with you. I want to hear from you. My fellow legislators want to hear from you. Keep up the good fight, and let's stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Clater. Our next speaker was supposed to be House Speaker Pro Tem. I'm so sorry, Walt Leger. But he had told me that he was traveling in from another meeting out of town this morning and was going to try and make it for 1:20. And I don't see him here yet. It's not 1:20 yet. So I'm going to go ahead and do our closing remarks, and then if he comes in, we'll give him the mic when he gets here. You heard our speakers talk about the importance of legislators hearing from you today and after you go home. We heard your voices cheering on these steps, but it's even more important for your legislators to personally hear your voices today inside the Capitol and throughout the legislative session. One more thing before we let you go. Senator Jack Donahue and Representative Jim Fannin both sponsored resolutions designating today as Disability Rights Day in Louisiana and recognizing the DD Council and LaCan for your advocacy efforts. The Senate resolution also recognizes the 25th anniversary of the ADA. At 2 p.m. today in the Senate chamber, Senator Donahue will read his resolution and recognize all LaCan members in the Senate chamber. So please try and be there in the Senate chamber to be recognized. You can get a seat, try and get a seat along the sides or up in the balcony. Okay, and Representative Henry Burns is here, and he wanted to say a few words. Awesome. Sam told me to call you.
Oh, it is so good to be here.
Thank you.
About 25 years ago, I got elected to the school board in Bossier Parish. And I saw that with people who had disabilities, for some reason, they just accepted their fate. They didn't expect accommodations. They just expected just to be brought in and watched more or less. But after the Americans with Disabilities Act was brought into effect, U.S. parents started demanding accommodations. And I know our parish responded in a most magnificent manner, and it's worked out really good. Let me just say this about the senator and representatives. Well, okay, here's...
Senator Claytor is.
Yeah, Senator Claytor, he is just really awesome. And Representative Theory has been probably the most outspoken voice the last couple of years, maybe even before that. But anyway, she is really a champion for you. And I just want you to know that people like Dwayne Ebarb, where are you, Dwayne? He inspires me almost every other day on the phone. And it's amazing when you can have a disability. He was getting ready to serve his country and had an accident. And then with becoming a participant in the Now waiver, look at what all Dwayne could do. What if he had to wait another 10 years? How awful is that? It breaks my heart. And then I got to know people like Ashley and others, Sandy, Liz, and others around that have truly inspired me. And the chairman from, is it Blanchard? Is it, did I get it right? Huh? Yeah, I keep saying she's from another town, but anyway, she's from Blanchard and all. It's just really an honor to be here, and all I can tell you is when Representative Theory or myself or someone else brings legislation that's in support of you, you can count on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Burns. Thank you all again for coming.
The waiting list is over 13,000 at this point. My son is 10 and he's been waiting since February of 2007.
Do you know where he's at on the list?
No, the way that it works right now is a first come, first served basis, and there are some people the last people that were being served are years ahead of him, and all the slots are frozen right now, so there isn't any hope for movement of the list, so we just right now wait.
I have a daughter that's 9 years old who have Angelman syndrome, and she's been on the waiting list for 6 years now. And by it being frozen, it's not no telling when she'll be able for services. And she's nonverbal, non-ambulatory. She's gonna need care for the rest of her life and 24 hours care. So I'm here tonight not to fight, but just to say what's right. That our children and others like her, as adults, needs this waiting list to just stop and end today. It is our right. We out here to just say it. Like I say, we're not here to fight. We just want to end the wait time now. It is time to stop it now.
I would say the biggest thing that we face right now is just the lack of respite or just having help to get a break at times would be the biggest thing at this point because he's younger. He doesn't have complex medical needs, and so that isn't an issue for us. We do have behavior therapy through our state plan Medicaid, so that's been a big blessing to us in the past year. But it's really going to be much more of a concern, particularly in the next couple of years when there are no after-school programs for him, and I'm a single parent and need to work.
I have faced financial challenges. I have faced heartbreak, anxiety, stress disorder. I had to file bankruptcy, lost 1,000 jobs due to the care for my daughter. Almost got mortgage loss, almost became homeless. I mean, it's been a long fight because it is a lot of responsibility to deal with an individual with a disability, and it just came on me. My daughter got diagnosed at 15 months, so it was like a shock, and I just handled it. I prayed, and I just tried to take control of it as much as I can, and thank God today that we're good. We're still here, we're standing, and I'm still going to be here to fight for my daughter and everybody else just like her.
How can people support you?
They can let their legislators know that people with disabilities are a priority and that we need funding for services. They can also join us in our advocacy efforts. efforts. Everyone knows someone with a disability. It may not be in their immediate family, but it's just right there around them in their community. They can show support in other ways too and just help out people like the good old-fashioned way.
It's time. People are tired of this wait. Stop the waiting list now.
How can people help?
They can talk to their legislators and tell them the importance of this issue. You know, the people here today are all impacted by disability in some way, but you don't have to be impacted by disability to get involved in this movement. It's the right thing to do. You know, people with disabilities are no different than anyone else. They deserve the right to live in their own home and be included in their communities. And so, you know, if somebody wants to take up this cause and make a call to their legislator and say, you know, do this, because it's the right thing to do, we would certainly welcome that. They can go to the DD Council's website, which is laddc.org, and find out more about us and our advocacy efforts. They can join LACAN, which is our grassroots advocacy network that just provides information on all of this. And they can certainly, you know, receive the information alerts and get involved in, you know, whatever way they choose.
Hear me, home is where I want to be. Hear me, home is where I want to be.
Now go inside and let your legislators hear you. Thank you.